We step into the world of big dreams, big moves, and big money. It's the Big Cheese Miami Recruiting and NIL Report with Manny Navarro. After 40 years, the Big Cheese remains dedicated to serving the finest Italian dinners, pizza, pasta, subs, and salads. All of their pasta is imported from Italy and cooked fresh every day. Visit BigCheeseMiami.com. Now, let's find out who's the Big Cheese the Miami Hurricanes are working on with insider Manny Navarro.
All righty. Don't forget, visit our friends over there at the Big Cheese, 8080 Southwest 67th Avenue, in honor of Billy, who we just lost a little over a week and a half ago, a legend. In over 40 years, he has created memories. A Hurricane Hall of Fame is there in the walls of the Big Cheese. You're going to love it. You're going to love the food, the service, the amazing people, and the experience. You get it all at the Big Cheese. And this is the Big Cheese NIL and Recruiting Report. And Manny, who did Miami pick up this week in recruiting?
Well, in the past week since we did our last show, which I told you last Friday that it looked like they were going to end up finally getting that commitment from Jalen Waters, the 4-star cornerback from the 2026 class. They did. They got him that night. I thought it would happen sometime over the weekend, and sure enough, the process sped up a little bit. So they got an elite 2026 cornerback in the fold, one of 5 commitments now in that class as they start to build here in the next few months. But they also picked up their second 2027 commitment. Again, I know you don't get excited over this stuff. They have so long to go. These guys are still, technically sophomores in high school, right? They've got to finish school this semester before they even become juniors.
They commit.
Yes.
It's just like, we're Jaden Rashad out. You know what I'm saying? It's just like fun.
Right. Well, the reason this one is important is because he's a local kid who plays on the South Florida Express. He's super talented. His name is Kenton Dobson, 6'1", 185 pounds, sophomore. Everybody in the country wanted this kid. Georgia, Penn State, all the teams that make the playoffs wanted this kid. And ultimately, it's a big deal just for that reason, because in the past, a lot of those elite kids, they kind of just, I'm not really even the local kids. I'm saying I won't even jump on board with Miami because I'm an SEC kid or I'm a Big Ten kid and I'm too big for them. But again, this is the changing landscape of Miami under Mario Cristobal, where they're doing a better job. They've been recruiting these kids a lot longer, right? They've got like this kid Dobson. He's known Mario and this coaching staff now since he was in the 7th grade. He's going into the 11th grade. That matters, right? You can eventually win a kid over when you have a long-term relationship with him. And so we'll see if Dobson ultimately ends up sticking. But I can tell you that in the last 20 years, it's not often that you get a South Florida Express potential 4 or 5-star defensive back who's 6'1", 185 pounds to commit this early in the process to a school like Miami. So that's why it's notable.
And Mario's strengths are communication. He communicates with those kids. He really recruits them. He continues to recruit them, over-recruit them. And then and because he's actually a good dude, he's like a guy that they're gonna go, wow, this guy actually gives a shit. You know what I'm saying? It's like Mario just has all those characteristics that you want from a human being and a coach. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to that connecting part, he's really good at that. He's maniacal about that, right? Which is
he is, and kids have told me that Mario gets up 4 in the morning, and by the time they go to wake up at 5, there's already a text from him there. As they're getting up to get ready to work out, Mario is texting them really, really early in the process, and the thing is, you think, well, man, what the hell? These coaches calling me this early or texting me this early, but the kids love it because to them, it's like, dude, if I get up this early and this guy's already awake, it's like I know he's in, right? I know he's really committed to this. Yeah, he gives a shit, and he starts early. He doesn't care what hour, and so the kids feel like a high priority. And I've had many of them tell me that, even ones that didn't sign with Miami, that are like, dude, I love Mario, like his personality, the way that he is, the passion that he recruits. That's what separates him, and that's why Miami hired him.
Yeah, and listen, again, I don't get excited about it, but I know isn't UM like listed as one of the top 10 teams with the most 2026 blue chip recruits. So that tells
Yeah,
you.
early in the process, they're doing well. Again, to me, the time that you really start to see it become meaningful is the summer. Like when you see June and July commitments, like right after those kids take their official visits, the ones that jump on, most of the time, I would say those kids, like 80% of them don't decommit because they've already been going through the process for a long time and they don't want to, they've taken all their official visits, they've been to campuses 6, 7, 8 times. And so to them, they're pretty much ready, and they want to decide before their senior year, so that when they sign in December, you know, the ones that want to play the game and try to get more money out of it, right, and squeeze schools, you can see who those are because those keep taking trips into the fall, keep visiting schools. But the serious ones, the guys that I think end up being the best players, they've pretty much got everything done even before their senior year starts.
All right, transfer portal. What should the Canes be working on? What position in the transfer portal should they be working on?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think without question, on offense, you look at the wide receiver position, just super inexperienced. That we mentioned this earlier. Miami went and got C.J. Daniels, a guy who played most of his career at Liberty and spent last season at LSU. He's not even healthy right now. He's coming back from an injury, so he's not even really involved. And the only other guy with starting experience is JoJo Trader, who started the bowl game. So in my mind, receiver without question is a major position that you look at this spring portal window that's going to open up next month, and you say, yeah, if Miami can find somebody with a lot more experience to come in here and just provide that, you take it. But I think to me, one that's potentially even bigger is safety. And you think about the position last year, the safety position. Miami went out and they got Zachariah Poyser out of Jacksonville State, an all conference performer, a young guy who's probably going to be a 2-year starter here before he goes pro, and a really good player. But I think they need a second guy because they're really, I think, young at that position. You look at Dylan Day, you look at Zaquan Patterson. Those are guys that are going into their second season. And while you want to give those guys an opportunity to win starting jobs and to be, guys that are a big part of your future, I also think you have to do what's right, and that's find a reliable guy who could be a number one, so that those guys are eased into that safety position. And so, to me, I think that's something that it has become sort of apparent because I like the DBs they got. They went out, they signed 5 DBs, but I think 4 of those guys really are cornerbacks. Poyser's the one natural safety. I think a lot of the other guys that they picked up are big bodied guys that could potentially move to safety if needed, but I would rather take a natural safety. And I think that's where when you go out and you steal, the DB's coach from the University of Florida and Will Harris, and then you bring in, the cornerbacks coach from Zach Etheridge, those guys have to know people in college football, right? Houston out of the Texas area, Zach Etheridge, Will Harris, who's just with the Gators. They have guys that I'm sure that they know that are more experienced safeties that they can reach out to now. I know it's tampering. I'm basically saying tampering, but essentially, have conversations with and see if they can bring in here so that you add a veteran safety. I think that's the one thing I look at on this defense, and I say, okay, that's something I think if I'm Mario, I want to try to land that and a wide receiver.
Speaking of tampering, any chance that Jai Lucas going to tamper over and say Boozer Brothers?
Yeah, there's no question. I think that one is 100% obvious. I think he went out and he did a great job recruiting them to Duke and to get them to go over there. But ultimately, the Boozer brothers are South Florida guys, born and raised, playing at Columbus High School, winning state championships. 2 great players. And I think without question, that's something that you talk about the University of Miami basketball team and the struggles, the fact they didn't even make it to the ACC tournament this week and play after making the Final Four just 2 years ago. Those are 2 guys that you look at and you say, yeah, those are guys that somehow have to end up in the fold here at Miami if you're really going to make a quick turnaround. And
okay,
ultimately,
so wait a minute. So if they have 7 million, I think that's what the figure I read somewhere for their NIL. How much? I don't know anything about this shit. How much would the Boozer brothers take up of that cap?
That's a good question. I mean, probably a good chunk of it. I would say probably close to $1 million each, or a little more. I think if ultimately that's how much Miami can spend on basketball, then you want them to prioritize those guys, because to me,
Yeah.
they look, like I said, Columbus High School state champions. Their high school coach might end up on the staff here at Miami as well. So I think, to me, it's a no-brainer that's what needs to happen. Look, the whole roster needs to be revamped, but those guys are the linchpins in my mind.
Yeah. And the good thing for basketball is they are in the conference that you want to be in when it comes to basketball. So, and unlike in football, that's not the sexy conference. In basketball, they're in the sexy conference. So that's a good thing.
Well, what's funny is that's kind of changed in the last few years. People have really taken a crap on the ACC, and yet every year there's an ACC team in the Final Four. But if you look at like the RPI and all that stuff, the ACC teams don't get a lot of respect because they don't win a lot of out-of-conference games lately. It's really dropped in the last like year or two, I would say. But what's funny is you go and you count the national championships and the teams that get to the Final Four, the ACC is always there. Right. So, but I think it's a very winnable conference, especially now with some of the coaches that have stepped down.
Yeah, with these turnovers and these rules, for sure, dude. Yeah.
And so
you get the right combination of a couple veteran players and some really young studs.
Yep.
Like Larinaga used to do. And he can get a combination of a couple of that, man. You never know, bro. You never know. Yeah. But it's nice to know they have money for that.
And that's what mattered. That's what you and I talked about it for years, on this show and on other shows when you and I have been on the air. And we always said money was the factor, right, for Miami's athletic program. They weren't spending the way that they needed to. And that changed with the administration and all the people that are involved now in helping turn this entire athletic program around.
It was a problem when they weren't spending enough money illegally, and it was a problem when they weren't spending enough money legally, but now they're spending enough money legally. But a few times when they did spend it illegally, they got busted. So that was not good either. But anyway, it is what it is. Follow him on Twitter at Manny_Navarro and catch his exceptional work there at The Athletic. Manny, as always, thank you, my brother. We'll catch up on Tuesday.
All right, man. Talk soon.
You got it. There you go. The great Manny Navarro and our Big Cheese NIL and recruiting report.
You've been listening to the Big Cheese Miami Recruiting and NIL Report with Manny Navarro. At the Big Cheese Miami, they continue to purchase the same high-quality ingredients that the most expensive Italian restaurants use. The difference is they serve large portions at a family price. Visit the Big Cheese at 8080 Southwest 67th Avenue in Miami. Call 305-662-6855 or go to thebigcheesemiami.com. Go Canes!
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.